all Mariner baseball. I got it listed here that I'm joined by the stat heads. Is that what you guys go by? Not you, Vin.
No.
All right. We'll introduce these gentlemen. This is Derek Zumsteg.
Yep.
To my left, Jason Barker and Jeff Shaw. I'm looking down because you're not household names. When they tell me, hey, Mariner baseball, you guys have got the inside scoop. And go, what's it called? Your blog?
U.S.S.Mariner.com.
U.S.S.Mariner.com. And New York Vinny, you've worked with these guys before. Huh?
Well, yeah. I mean, I've been stealing stuff from them for years and years and years. They are the best Mariner fan blog, website. I mean, as far as coming up with little things, little stats, little nuances, these guys work hard at it and deserve a lot of credit.
Let's get it going. The deadline, of course, is coming up tomorrow at 1 o'clock. I'll start with you, Jason. Will the Mariners do anything come 1 o'clock tomorrow?
I don't really see them doing anything major. Maybe a small move. You're talking about Kenny Lofton, but I don't see any sort of blockbuster at this point. They're pretty set in most positions.
All right, hey Jeff, we'll talk about Kenny Lofton because here's a guy that's healthy, 39 years of age. But are you confident with this Adam Jones kid as you hit the dog days as your center fielder?
Well, I think Adam Jones is going to be a terrific major league player, but right now I think he's overmatched. In my opinion, they rushed him to the big leagues. Very, very optimistic on him long term. But for the stretch run, I would love to see them add a guy like Lofton, a guy who can serve as a stopgap, and get you there, plus give you a chance to compete right now. Lofton's certainly not what he once was, but he still gets on base, and he'd be a real upgrade for the stretch run.
By the way, this is free-flowing, so Vin, you chime in, as well as you, Derek, at any point. But Derek will bring you right up here. Let me ask you, do they really have a legitimate shot of winning? Because it's that time where you have to do the gut check. You look in the mirror and say, hey, listen, let me define myself. Am I a seller or am I a buyer? Do they have a legitimate chance of winning the division? Do you compromise your future for this year's team?
What's a legitimate chance? I mean, they're 3 games back. They're as good as any other team in the division, but 3 games is a lot to make up when you have 2 teams ahead of you. I mean, you got to figure Oakland doesn't do anything. They don't improve, but traditionally they put on this huge second-half surge, and then you got to figure, like, Texas falls off or something, right? Is that going to happen? Are you going to get both things? Maybe. I mean, they could do it. They have a chance, but, don't hold your breath.
I'm thinking 3.5 games. Look, the object is to get into the postseason. It used to be to win the World Series.
Yeah.
Now, the object is to get in the postseason because you can sell that the next year. Hey, we're back. With the Mariners, we're back in the postseason. The bad times are gone. The good times are here. This team needs to do what it needs to do to make the postseason. Not only from a point of maybe getting in there and getting hot in the, in the playoffs and maybe doing something, but also for next year's marketing. How much better will it be for the guys who've got to pick up the phone and say buy season tickets if they're selling playoff tickets? If all of a sudden this team is, got a little something to go up against the Seahawks with in October.
But marketing aside, do you compromise and mortgage your future for a sub-500 baseball team?
I don't think that you do, but I don't think that you have to. I think the Mariners have a plan in place where they're committed to their young players like Jose Lopez, like Yuniesky Betancourt up the middle. They feel like those guys are going to be able to play well now and in the future. I think if there were a blockbuster deal out there that maybe, but there isn't. There just isn't a deal out there that's going to definitely put them over the top. So I think they feel like they can compete now and continue to build for the future.
From a marketing standpoint, one of the things that's really good is having friendly, fresh youngsters, right? You can't sell a bunch of decrepit guys like Scott Spezio and Rich Aurelio, right?
Carl Everett.
If you've made a comeback to 500, right, you finally restored respectability, and you can say, this is our young core, they're getting better, great things are ahead of us. I think that's a persuasive pitch for people like me to come back and buy season tickets again.
And everybody expected this team to be a 500 team this year. It's just kind of what people looked at. Maybe a few games under, but 500 was really the goal this year. If they could get to 500. Now, if you're 3 games over 500 and you win the division, well, glorioski. I mean, that's a beautiful thing if you can do that. As the Mets did back in '73.
Always the Mets reference.
Well, but you know what? That's what those are the kind of, or the Padres last year. Those are the kind of things that you look at. You don't have to be 10 games over 500 to roll the dice in the playoffs. All you're going to have to be to win this division, I don't know, guys, but you think, but 2, 3, 4 games over 500 may very well have you, hosting playoff game, or at least having a playoff game at your place.
See, I don't think that as bad as the division is, and you're still hovering around 500, if the M's have an 8 or 9 game winning streak in them, they can win the division. I don't think you're going to see this mediocrity from here until September. Oakland, as we have seen throughout the past, West, as well as maybe even Texas, somebody is going to go on a run. If the M's are going to win it, they're not going to do it by cruising around 500.
Yeah, well, the team's played well lately, though, is the thing. They've gone 8-7 in their last 15 games in a really tough stretch of schedule against New York, Toronto, Boston. Cleveland is a good team. You know, this is certainly not a team that's going to run away with the division, and I wouldn't, and like, as Derek says, you know, it's unlikely that they do win the division, but they're certainly not that much worse than anybody else that's out of the realm of possibility, even if they do make no moves.
All right, we are with the stat heads. We're hearing from two stat. Jason, are you all right?
I'm good.
Just bark right in there, man.
Will do.
You're dangerous with the computer, is that it? Hey,
true.
jump on, because these guys, it's all they do. They break down the Mariners. You want to discuss what's going on with this team, who they should trade for, and do they have a legitimate shot at getting a division title? Hey, it all happens right here. We'll continue our discussion right here on Q Up Sports. How about Broussard, the home run yesterday versus Cleveland, and provided to be the winning margins as the M's came up winners. At the break, the stat heads, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about Mike Hargrove. Now, who's going to step up? Now that the camera's on, you were talking about potentially that this guy, maybe the best thing would have been to get rid of him?
Yeah. He should be fired yesterday, if that's possible. Retroactive firing. I think it's possible. Yeah, day before that.
What's wrong with Grover?
Well, I think I have two main beefs with him. I'm not going to speak for the other guys. My two main beefs with him are bullpen usage. Like, he uses a guy like Julio Mateo in very high leverage innings situations where the game is close, the game is late. When he has much better options, the bullpen seems to have this odd fascination for him. And also, his lineup substitution patterns seem to be drawn from a dartboard often. And he has an irrational fascination with early. We were talking off camera about his irrational fascination and love for Carl Everett, who thankfully has been released. Designated for, or he hasn't been released. He's been designated for assignment, which means the team has 10 days to trade him, release him, or put him down like Barbaro. I'm hoping they'll choose the latter option. But that's beside the point. Anyway, he has irrational fascinations with veteran players, doesn't like young players, and uses his bullpen poorly. And those are my main beefs with him.
Well, you know, it's interesting because you could have taken what you just said and said it about Lou Piniella.
Exactly.
Except that Piniella always seemed to push the right buttons when it came to this kind of stuff to make guys, for the most part, produce for him. Where Grover does the same thing, but the guys that he leans on seem to fall apart. They don't produce for him. And that's really the difference in a lot of ways between the two.
I'm going to defend managers right across the board because Beltre and Sexton don't hit. I mean, you have a lot. It's a players' league, as it is in the NBA, as it is in the NFL. Managers, as you said, they can tinker and do some of the things that you talked about, but isn't the brunt of the responsibility on a guy like Adrian Beltre who gets all that money who's not carrying his weight?
Well, I'd love to talk about Beltre. Beltre, he couldn't hit until they moved him to the second hole. And now, for some reason, they've decided to move him back down to third in the order, which I don't understand at all. I mean, I'm not really big on lineup order so much, but if it's all mental and he thought he could hit when he was hitting second, I don't know why you'd ever move him out of that slot.
He's hitting, what, 370 in a two-hole or something like that? Some bizarre.
He was better than he's hit anywhere else. So.
Yeah. And Hargrove almost had to be forced to make that move. It was almost the thing where he was forced to make it.
And like the only way that they got him to stop batting Everett, who absolutely stunk it up in the middle of the order every time, was by getting rid of Everett, right?
Yeah.
You can talk about like you have to flavor the players, and there's this whole dynamic going on. But at some point, you give him the tools, and if he just can't figure out how to use them, you go get another mechanic.
All right, Felix Hernandez. Want to talk about some of the pitchers? The kid Hernandez. We have some pictures of him. Talk about him and what do you expect of him as we hit this. You find out a lot about your players when you get into the dog days and you're in a pennant race. Somebody. Stat heads, please.
Felix is an outstanding player who's going to be just going to get better. You know, sometimes he's going to, he's an incredibly prodigiously gifted kid just out of his teenage years, and you've got to expect something from him. He's a kid with a golden right arm who is still learning how to pitch. And I think his problem this year is, if you look at his peripheral stats, his strikeout rate, his walk rate, his numbers haven't been that bad. His problem is he's given up home runs, and I think that there are small things that they can do. I'm nothing but bullish on him for the future.
He also came into camp looking like Fernando Valenzuela, Freddie Garcia. I mean, he came in, a ton overweight. Once he dropped some of that weight as the season went on, I think he became a better pitcher. He started to gain his momentum back and his stamina back a little bit. Not that I should talk about guys coming in overweight.
Well, you know what? I saw a good story on pitchers that are overweight. It really doesn't bother them. When you look at David Wells and you look at Terry Forster and so Terry.
But for young kids and stamina-wise, I got to think.
Bartolo Colon.
El Guapo.
It's the knees.
Yeah.
It's the knees. Their knees give out after a while.
Okay.
It may not be like I can't pitch tonight, but like their careers tend to be much shorter.
Let's quickly go around the room. We got about 10 seconds left in the segment. M's win the division, go to the playoffs, yes or no?
No.
No.
I wish.
Is that a no?
No.
Vinny?
I'm an eternal optimist. I think they do. I think they do something.
I hope Vinny's right.
Joe Jima is your rookie of the year.
And he made that prediction after the second game of the year. Is that true? Is that going to hold true?
I think so. It depends
Okay.
on what the voters do. Sometimes voters don't like foreign players, but he's certainly made a case on the field. He's a terrific acquisition.
If they don't grow, if they don't make the playoffs this year, is Mike Hargrove coming back next year?
No.
He's not back anyway.
Oh, that's unanimous.
regardless.
All right, that is the Stat Edge, guys. Thank you so much. And really quick shout out where they can log on and catch you guys.
Check us out at USSmariner.com.
All right, we'll continue with the owner of the Seahawks. We'll talk David Beckham and company right after this.